Greetings and welcome to another series here at Comesa Television Network, our video streaming platform. We are the mind, the journey, the destiny. We apply our mind to the journey that takes us to our destiny. And our shows are based on this beautiful principle that I love so much that I don't want to try to remember it off heart. It's called the idea. We inform and entertain, develop and educate, empower and support, associate and network. That's the idea. The methodology we use is the African Lekgotla methodology. This is not a contestation of ideas. This is a platform where we learn to listen to each other, we learn from each other, and then, of course, we engage. And I always say that silence is also a way of communication. My name is Sam Zimmer. I am the anchor of the show, and I'm joined by my regular co-host, Divesh Mutila. We are the graduates of a wonderful program we called Digital Online Streaming Mastery Show. We went through 40 series of this topic, learning about the do's and don'ts, and now we are believing that we are ready to host the type of guests we have this evening. So our show is going to be split into two sections. The first hour, we're going to be talking to our first guest, and that's Alan Strydom from the HeartMath South Africa. And then, of course, the second hour, we'll be talking to Jessica Mathabatha from the Voices4Success. Is that right?
Yes, Voice4Success.
Voices4Success. She's a voice coach. Oh, wow, beautiful. I'm going to learn a lot about voice coaching because we talk a lot and we don't take care of our voices. I'm sure you have got some takeaways today. But let me ask Divesh just to welcome the guest, introduce himself, and then, of course, hopefully other colleagues will join us. Otherwise, they might be watching from the other platform. Divesh, my friend, I've missed you last week, so we're back. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sam, and a warm welcome to our guests, Jessica and Alan, and especially our viewers who's joined us this evening for our stream. My name is Divesh Motilal. As Sam has outlined, I'm a graduate of the Comesa online streaming mastery program, and I'm also an electrical engineer by profession. I've been very involved in program management within the space of public sector as well as in the government space. And my current focus has been on digital transformation within government processes, as well as the use of artificial intelligence to try and help improve our service delivery, as well as bring longevity to our infrastructure. Thank you, Sam. You're muted, Sam.
The brother Rabula is joining. Rabula, welcome.
Thank you, Sam. Some of this week you don't have. I'm sorry?
Say, carry on.
I said some of this you don't have control over it. Don't forget my nose has got blisters. I had a flu. So if my voice is not perfect, don't push me in a corner. Eh? I'm just asking to my audience here. I'm struggling with my voice, but I shouldn't be here.
Welcome, my brother. I will give you time to settle down. But we have just started. You haven't missed much. This is the introductory phase. We're going to spend the first hour with Alan and release him to go to bed because he's in the Far East. He says he's talking to us from our future, which we are still to experience. Alan, let's start slowly by getting to know you and also tell us where you are at the moment. Why are you midnight already while we are still just in the early evening here?
Right. Well, firstly, thank you, Sam, and thank you, Divesh, for welcoming me to your lovely platform and getting this opportunity to speak to you guys. So currently, it's just gone midnight. I'm speaking to you from Chiang Mai in northern Thailand. I've been here since 2019. I'm South African, born and raised, But I came traveling in the Southeast Asia, and I loved it so much I decided to stay and became an expat. So that's why I'm talking to you from the future.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. I know, Jessica, we're going to be talking to you in the second half, but let's greet the listeners and tell us where you're calling from and what you do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Mathabatha. I am a voice coach. I'm a qualified speech and language therapist. I've been working as a voice coach for more than 20 years, and I am currently based in Belfast in the United Kingdom. I've been here for around about 20 years, and South Africa is home. That's where I was born and grew up, and that's where I studied. And I've called Belfast home for 5 years, but the UK home for about 20 years. And I can just say, I'm happy to say I've been in South Africa I've been back, 2 weeks now. So I'm like I've sunned myself up from South Africa. So I still can smell the South African soil.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you and I had opportunity to catch up while you were down here. It was so beautiful, and I hope we'll see you more often here or see us that side if you make it happen regularly. Yeah. Rabula, opportunity to say hi to the listeners and then introduce yourself, and then we hand over to Alan to tell us the story.
Apologies for late coming. My name is Rapula Mudibani. I am currently an accredited Comensa coach and also an entrepreneur on my own, mostly focusing on social facilitation, coaching and mentoring small entrepreneurs, and every now and then you find me in different facilitations. So you will find me in education a lot, and you'll find me in personal development a lot. That's who I am. I'm the founder and the owner of Reclalibile Holding Group, and currently is doing a little bit small business, but mostly in the mining industry. So I'm happy and want to learn from the guys in the East and the guys in Europe what you should do differently to make sure that we grow this country. Trump is busy sending some signals that the internal focus is the best. Perhaps we can learn a lot of things from you guys. Thank you.
Beautiful. Welcome, Rapula. Yes, Alan, HeartMath. I'm a member of HeartMath, and I was very delighted to find out that actually there is HeartMath South Africa. I want to hear from you the journey that took you to becoming part of HeartMath, and what is HeartMath? Perhaps you can use that as a way of kickstarting our conversation. And my colleagues and I will engage with you. This is the Lekgotla, and as long as there's a space, we'll come in and we engage with you. Over to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Sam. Okay, so how did I get involved with HeartMath, and what is HeartMath? Well, my journey started many years ago. I have a background in counseling, NLP, psychoneuroimmunology, hypnotherapy. And then when I was in my 30s, I got involved with a young lady, as we all do with our relationships. And we were together for about 13 years, and there was like a 10-year difference between us. And what happened was she woke up one morning and she said, I want to go travel. So I said, great, where are we going to go? She said, no, I want to go travel. So I said, oh, what do you mean? And this was the start of our breakup. And for the next 2 years, I struggled with that breakup, Sam. What happened was that she went and worked on a yacht overseas in America. It was the first time that she left South Africa. And every 2 months or so, they would fly her back, and we would see each other, and then she would go back again, and she'd come back. And this resulted in me having this kind of roller coaster ride over those 2 years. And I found myself spiraling into a depression. I was living in Plettenberg Bay at the time, and then I moved down to Cape Town, and I was living in a place called Surfers Corner, which is in Muizenberg. I don't know if you're familiar with that part of the world. Living on the 10th story floor of a 14-story building, and one Monday, she texts me and she says, I'm in town. So I said, oh, wonderful. She says, well, I've got some news for you. I'm with my new Italian boyfriend. And I go, oh, okay. And she says, I've got some more news for you. I'm staying around the corner from where you're living right now. And I'm going, oh, okay. And it turned out that, for the next couple of days, that was the Monday, the Tuesday, the Wednesday, I was too afraid to leave the building in case I would bump into them because I didn't know how I would react. Then on the Wednesday, and you won't believe this part of the story, then on the Wednesday, I received an email from a gentleman from the UK by the name of Andy Pillant. And he had just arrived in Cape Town from America, and he was emailing people who were on HeartMath USA's database. So I was one of those people because I had purchased one of their technology, which I'll speak a little bit about later on as well. This is biofeedback technology. Way back, I purchased it. I never used it. And Andy reached out to people because he just landed in Cape Town. And he's like, does anybody want to talk about HeartMath? And I just saw this email come in, and I was feeling really, really down in the dumps. And I just kind of replied, yeah, sure, okay. And I sent it off. By the Friday, when the Friday rolled around, this is the sad part of the story, but I've got to be honest because it is part of the story. The Friday came about, and I was actually going to take my life. I decided that I couldn't do this anymore. I was feeling so, the brain fog, the depression, the sadness, and all this kind of stuff, this longing, the fear of bumping into the ex. So I was actually on my way to the window of this 10-story building or 14-story building, and the phone rang. And just by impulse, I reached over and I grabbed the phone, and it was Andy. And he says, "I just read your email. Do you want to meet up and talk about HeartMath?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" And that was the start of my journey to HeartMath. For some reason, fortunately, I didn't jump. I met up with Andy the following day, and his words to me was, I have a sense that you're on the edge of something. And I'm like, oh my God, if only you knew how close to the edge I really was. And he asked me, he says, I noticed that you look quite down and depressed. What's going on? I didn't get into the story with him, but he said to me, are you using HeartMath at all? And I said, no. You guys want more money for this and for the training. And I was very bitter and angry at the time. And he said to me, well, come along to my presentation and I'll help you out. But you got to bring, you got to come do your share. So I said, okay, great. So I went around to his presentation. I was there the first thing in the morning, the following morning again. And I decided to stay for the whole day. I was totally captured by this man and his charisma, the way that he spoke to everybody in the room, his knowledge, and just his heart, his open heart. It was wonderful. So Andy was there speaking about all this beautiful heart stuff. And then there was a doctor from Cape Town who had come to one of the talks, and he was talking about the science of how he was using HeartMath with his patients. And at the time, he was working with cancer and HIV patients. And I was intrigued because I was caught up in the world between these two people, the kind of science on the one side and then this charismatic man on the other side. And after Andy's, I think, third or fourth presentation, I went over to the doctor and I said to him, I've got a problem. I've got a depression. I almost took my life. I want to come see you, and I want to find out, how do you use HeartMath with your patients? So I went and saw him. I saw him for about 3 sessions. I kid you not, about 3 sessions. We did some HeartMath stuff in those 3 sessions. And I committed to practicing the technique, the very basic technique of HeartMath, 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening. 2 weeks later, I bump into my ex in Plettenberg Bay. So it was just by accident. I didn't realize that she was going to be there. I went down to go and see a friend of mine, and we're sitting in his back office, and she walks in with her new Italian boyfriend. And I'm like, oh my word. And I literally had seconds in which to self-regulate, because that's essentially what HeartMath is really teaching us, is about how do we emotionally self-regulate. Anyway, so I just literally had seconds to self-regulate and compose myself. She saw me, she burst into tears. She got such a shock. And we ended up having coffee, the four of us, my friend, the Italian, myself and her. And when we said goodbye, I kind of waved them off in the distance going, goodbye. You know, it was like one of those moments where they ride off into the sunset together. And I'm standing there going, I'm okay. I really feel okay. I don't feel numb. I don't feel sad. I actually feel okay. And I jumped on the phone to Andy and I said to him, when are we going to bring HeartMath to South Africa? And that was kind of the start of how I got there. It took another 2 years before we officially landed, which was back in 2012. So HeartMath South Africa started in 2012. And just to give you a little bit of more insight into this quickly before I stop, if you have any questions. In hindsight, now that I can look back on this, I was 38 years old at the time. Now, the technology that we have is a little sensor. I've got it with me here today. A little sensor that clips on your ear. It reads your heart rate variability. I can get into that in more detail if you want to. But basically, heart rate variability is a sign of health and well-being and fitness. So at the age of 38, in my 2-year depression, I had the heart rate variability of a healthy 70-year-old man. 70, right? So that's a very small heart rate variability. I am now 53 years old and I have the heart rate variability of a 35-year-old. So you can regain this heart rate variability back again. And we're actually talking about anti-aging actually as well. It's one of the measures for anti-aging. So I'll stop there for a moment because I know I gave you quite a lot of information and a little bit of history. But Sam, I don't know where you'd like to go now.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that perspective, Divesh and Rabula.
Yes, thank you, Alan. And I want to just also share with you my heartfelt support in terms of sharing that very painful part of your life. And I hope it does inspire others who are watching the show who may be in similar types of situations as you might have found yourself in back in those days, to also find that courage, to see that light. And it's sometimes very strange and it's not something we can really pinpoint, but you had a sort of a divine intervention with the colleague who had reached out at the right time. I won't go into that because that's probably more of a spiritual discussion. But just in terms of your journey, it's very interesting to me that you were in a very low point and then you come to a very high point, if I could put it that way. That to me was very interesting in terms of what you had shared. I'm still thinking about specific questions that I could pose to you. But back to you, Sam.
Yeah, Alan, we very seldom go back to where it all started. I'm sure we must be one of the very few people that are fortunate that we hear this. Is it something that you encourage, or is something that you feel strong that you should start with, or is it different from people to people? That this kind of going back and sort of like telling the story with the true experience.
Well, Sam, for me, the story is important only as a reference point to why I'm still involved with HeartMath now, and the fact that I've actually dedicated the rest of my life to helping others with this as well. So for me, it was a profound shift in a very short space of time. So having the background knowledge of hypnotherapy, counseling, psychoneuroimmunology, and then having a network of friends and colleagues that could actually help me through the depression, right? But none of that really helped. And the reason being that you can't change the way you feel by thinking differently. You have to change the way you feel by feeling differently. And that was the key that HeartMath unlocked, was that ability to feel differently on demand.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what now for somebody like me who's a member of HeartMath? I mean, if I didn't join HeartMath Global, I would have not been known of you. And you have taught me during our preparation for this show that there is quite a vast difference between HeartMath South Africa and HeartMath Global, but they are related. It's the same organization. Yeah. Just take us through that for educational purposes.
Okay, sure. Well, just to begin with, HeartMath was officially founded in 1991 by Dr. Childre. So this was many, many years ago. People often forget that it started way back before there was technology, because a lot of people's focus with HeartMath nowadays is about the biofeedback technology. But I focus more on the actual techniques of emotional self-regulation. So we have HeartMath in the USA, which is the founding company back in 1991. And HeartMath South Africa is a licensed affiliate of HeartMath USA. So we have got the license to deliver training and product in South Africa and accredit coaches on behalf of HeartMath USA. So people who do training with us, they are recognized through HeartMath USA as well. Yeah.
So they like we will go through training as coaches. So there is training for the usage of the HeartMath methodology.
Correct.
As you coach on those interventions or techniques.
That's correct. Yeah. So we had a number of training programs available. What we've actually just brought it all down to one now, which we call the HeartMath Coach Mentor Program. In the USA, you can still find exactly the same program, but they call it a different name. They call it Building Personal Resilience. And so this training is a resilience model where we are teaching our coaches how to help their clients emotionally self-regulate. So there are a suite of techniques that we are teaching, along with how to use the technology in a coaching framework, which then leads people to become more resilient. The big difference for us, the differentiator, I guess, is that the techniques themselves, we can do them anywhere, anytime, under almost any condition, open eyes. So it's not meditation, it's not breath work, it's nothing where you have to take some time out and go stand in the somewhere else. You're doing it live, much like I'm doing some of that right now with you, and you don't even know that I'm doing that, right? So eyes open, self-regulation. And then the other differentiator being the technology, which I like to think of it as a training aid to develop this capacity to self-regulate. So as we are learning these techniques, we've got the biofeedback letting us know how well we are doing the techniques. It's like having a personal trainer in your corner. I mean, I've been going to the gym for years, but without that personal trainer that says to me, just move your muscle a little bit this way, you got to, and then you can feel the difference. Well, that's essentially what the biofeedback is doing.
And how is it fitting in the modern other interventions? Like we do coaching, we do all sorts of things, and we have a voice coach here. Does it find its space in the midst of all these other?
Yeah, great question, Sam. Absolutely. HeartMath is the HeartMath system is really about supporting everything else that we do. So we've got a campaign that we called Add Heart, and this idea of adding heart to whatever it is that we're doing. So whether we're coaching or we're an athlete or a student or a parent, whatever it is that we're doing, how can we bring the compassionate, understanding heart, as well as the vulnerable, messy, honest heart to the things that we're doing? How can we give it our all and not just get caught up in the traps that the brain has? So HeartMath really underpins and supports everything else that we do. So for example, you speak about coaching, right? for me, the mark of a good coach is how present we are with our clients. So there is this idea in HeartMath, when we emotionally self-regulate, we are then exercising our ability to be what we call coherent. So coherence is a term that is often used in HeartMath. And you can think of this as being centered, as being present, as being composed. You can extend that idea of coherence further and say that there is balance in the body between the gut, or at least the gut brain, the heart brain, the neocortex. You can extend it further by saying that there's balance in the autonomic nervous system, or a relative amount of balance. But this coherence underpins everything else that we do. So, whether you're a coach, your level of coherence would be how attuned you are to your client, not necessarily thinking about what's the best question to ask, but really just feeling into what is really needed in this moment. If you're an athlete, it would be about getting into the zone, getting into the flow. If you're a student, it's about clear mind and being able to work under pressure. So that's what HeartMath really offers.
I want to give my colleagues a chance to engage with you, but one last question and my colleagues can come in. So did you have to then train yourself to make yourself a HeartMath, if I may use that word? Or how did you come to the level where now you are an authority on what HeartMath is all about since the encounter with the colleague?
Yeah, okay, that's a wonderful question. I hardly consider myself an authority. I'm learning every day still. But I did my training in the USA with HeartMath back in 2012. I came back to South Africa. I started training coaches as well as public and in corporate as well. And then my colleague in the UK, he asked me to mentor his coaches. So over the past, 12, 13 years now, well, this will be the 13th year, I've been training and mentoring more than 1,000 coaches by now. And because it's one-on-one mentoring, especially the mentoring part, because it's one-on-one, I spend many hours with them, and I get to speak to all sorts of different people from across the world. And so because I'm doing that, I've got to find different ways in which to speak about HeartMath and the stuff that I know and I was trained in. And I think that's where the vocabulary of HeartMath has come alive for me, that I can really bring it down to street level and make it more practical in the way that I speak about it. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking of my colleague Rabula, who is a mentor that is always looking for new tools to add to his tool bag, and I can see he's listening quite very attentively. Rabula, what's going on as you reflect?
No.
You're welcome to come in as well.
No, the one area which Alan need to, do you know when you move from external forces to internal forces, and within a split of a week or two, you have converted, said, who is Alan? Because before who is Alan, it was this external people who was Alan. Now that transition, how did you manage to make the fastest transition, moving from the top of the hill where the rope was nearer to take your life to where now you tell people or you advise people not to take their lives? So that transition for me is very important. How did you manage to, not forget that before Alan go full-time on HeartMath, Alan was influenced by external force. The girlfriend was an external force. It was not Alan. It was an external force. So that transition from an external force to an internal force, now the inner voice speaks with the help of somebody else who is an invisible person. How did Alan got the transition right? It's very important for me to learn and how do we get it right, the transition. It's very important. Yeah.
Sure.
Thanks, Alan. Just as much as I could.
It's a wonderful question. Thank you, Rapula. So I think the best way to describe this would be to say that when we are stressed out, no matter what the stress is that we are going through, whatever the challenge is, what we tend to do is we tend to focus on that stress or that challenge, and we start to think about it. So there's this mental activity happening. So in my case with the depression, that's exactly what I was doing. I was thinking about all of this, how much I was missing and what was going wrong in my life, and what, all of that kind of stuff. What emotional self-regulation is really about, and specifically in the HeartMath system, we start with what we call heart focus. That's the foundational first step of everything that we do, is to shift our attention to the heart. So in NLP terms, you might think of it as an anchor, right? I don't know if you're familiar with NLP. So instead of focusing on the stressor, like acknowledge, yes, there is the stress. We don't want to deny it or suppress it. That's not the point. The point is to acknowledge, yes, there is this challenge that I currently have, but I have an opportunity here. I can either focus on that, which I've always been doing my entire life, and look where it gets me. I really struggle. Or I can bring my attention to something else. So as I bring my attention to the heart, what am I really doing there? Well, I'm building a new neural association to something that's the center of my being, my core. If you think about the word heart, no matter what culture you go to, and I live here in Thailand, and there are thousands of words that they use in association with the word heart. But around the world, all sorts of cultures use the word heart in similar ways. We speak from the heart. We wear our heart on our sleeves. I have heartbreak. When I say these things, you know exactly what I mean, right? So when we shift our attention to the heart, we are actually building that neural focus of attention on the heart, and then the qualities of the heart. So if we think about relationships, what's really important to you about, things and people. Then there's also the physical heart itself, right? So becoming aware of that physical heart. Now, some people might find that uncomfortable, but for me, I've really learned to listen to it very carefully, and I can feel that beat. And I know that as I connect with that beat, I'm becoming more centered and present, knowing that my heart is the only key to what's actually happening moment to moment in my life as my life unfolds, right? So if I think about the stressor, my mind is anticipating what's going to happen based on what has happened, because that's what the mind does. It looks for, patterns of and familiarity, and then tries to assess what's going to happen and try and protect us. And that's great. Let the mind do its job. But there's another way to do this as well, and that's when we focus on the heart and we started tune into the heart's intelligence. That's a very different kind of intelligence. So all that takes place in that first step, right? So learning to redirect the attention away from the stress and bring it to self here. What is really more important here? Okay, that's the first step. The second step then is we need to take control of our autonomic nervous system. Now that autonomic nervous system, or automatic nervous system, we can't stop how it works, but we can minimize the impact of it. So if I'm walking through the forest and I see a green stick there lying, I go, oh, it's just a green stick, but already my heart is racing fast, right? I can't stop that. But I can minimize the impact of that by learning to control it. And the way we do that is through breath. So breathing forms one component of what it is that we do, and we breathe in a certain way. So while our attention is on the heart, we breathe slower and deeper than what we normally do. So that means intentionally and mindfully, I want to breathe slower and deeper. And then I want to pay attention to rhythm as I'm breathing. So I want to make sure that my inhalation matches my exhalation. And I want to do that in a constant rhythm, right? So we can try that together right now if you like, and just you can let me know how that you experience it, right? So I'll guide you through.
Now, before we go there, whenever I speak to a person like Alan, I normally take the practical portion of it. I'll say, here's Alan, he's an entrepreneur. He's focused on external issues where Alan doesn't have a control on it. And he tends to ignore the internal issues where Alan's got control on it. Okay. So that transition for me, you did help. You say you take your inner breathe in and breathe out, which makes sure that your circulation of your air and your blood system helps you to relax and calm down and take your mind away from the external issues and put it internal and say, here's Alan. That next door lady, it's not Alan. Alan need to walk from here to make sure that when that next door lady comes in, finds Alan being strong, and the stronger portion will come from heart. And how do I develop that heart to make sure that I'm a stronger Alan who can be able to serve what I'm hearing and what impacting me are two different things. If what I'm hearing doesn't add value, ignore it. What I'm hearing, if it's add value, appreciate it and embrace it so that it can grow as a person. So this is that type of a transition, which I find it very interesting. That's how Alan, at that time, when he had a rope around his neck and moved within a space of a second or a week to say that rope was an external force, was not an internal, was not Alan, it was something else. That transition for me is very important to say, when I'm doing mentoring or doing coaching, I need to find out who is Alan first before we go to external issues affecting Alan. That's my interpretation of just said Alan. Unless we can start doing the breath in, inhaling very slowly, and inhaling outside very slowly, so to make sure we keep ourselves awake. By the way, before I shut down, my sister-in-law's daughter is in Thailand. He's a teacher in Thailand. He's teaching that space. So he's in a good space. I know. Thank you.
There's a connection there, Alan. Alan, I was ready to go into that exercise. Let's get Jessica, if she allows us to go into the exercise, or she had something to follow up with.
Let's go to the exercise, and then I'll ask afterwards.
Okay. Because I'm ready.
Yeah. Okay, but just to build on what Rapula was saying there about this focusing on the external, this is what we normally do, and nobody's really taught us ever how to manage our emotional selves, what's happening internally. So this is what we're offering here. But understand that there is a process involved, and there is let's call it training involved. In my case, the 2 weeks that I was fully committed, I just went for it. Not everybody's going to get those results. I did, but I find that the access is very, very quick. So we can try it now together, and you can tell me. So all we need to do is, what I'd like you to do, keep your eyes open. I'm going to invite you to keep your eyes open. And if you struggle with, like, what do I look at while I'm doing this, just have a soft gaze in your eyes. You can downcast your eyes a little bit if you like. I'm going to be watching you guys on the screen anyway, because I'm used to that by now. And then, if it helps, you can put your hand on your heart as well, if it helps you connect. I don't need to do that, but I'll do that tonight as well. There it is, right? So place my hand on my heart, just so that it helps me connect and bring my attention and my focus there. And then I'm going to start to breathe a little bit slower and deeper than what I normally do. And I invite you to do the same. So as you inhale, imagine that the belly is moving away from your spine as you inhale. And imagine that the belly is moving back towards the spine as you exhale. And then just continue with that kind of slow, deep breathing. And imagine that the breath is coming in through the heart as you inhale. Imagine it leaving through the heart as you exhale. Breathing in a slow rhythm that feels comfortable to you. Now, as you continue to breathe that way, just notice what's happening in your mind or what's happening in your body. So let's stop there. I don't want to make it too long, as I want to show you how impactful this can be in a short space of time. But let me ask you guys, how was that for you? What did you experience?
I was going to fall asleep because my mind was relaxed.
Okay. So that's important to know that. Thank you for your honesty. So let me address that first. When we feel that we want to fall asleep, it's normally an indication that we haven't been getting good sleep, right? This is not about relaxation. This is about being able to calm our nervous system down. Now, there's a difference between calming it down and relaxation. In other words, I can come home after a very busy day and lie down on the couch and my heart rate would come down. I'm relaxing, but I'm still thinking about the day that I had. I'm still frustrated. I'm still angry, right? I'm not calm. So there's a difference between relaxation and feeling coherent. So thank you for your honesty there. And I would suggest listen to your body. If your body says, hey, I'm sleepy, go give it some sleep. Anybody else?
I agree. I think I was caught up with the flu and it frustrates me because I had too much on my plate. No, I agree.
Yeah. Thank you.
For me, you mentioned it there. I felt a lot calmer and really chilled. So for me, that was, I don't know whether that was the outcome that was meant to get, but I felt a little bit calmer.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you, Jessica. So even if you're feeling a little bit more calmer than you were originally, just realize that you did that in a very short space of time with your eyes open, not knowing what to expect, right here on a live streaming broadcast, right? So we can actually do this under pressure at any time, anywhere, and we can get a result very quickly. Now, this is called heart-focused breathing, and it's just a very simple, easy technique to do. Now, the good news is that we have to continue to breathe, right? I mean, that's a thing that has to happen. So what we can do is we can become more mindful of how we are breathing. So again, noticing what's happening around us. If there's a challenge or a stress or something that I have to do, can I bring my attention to the heart first, calm my nervous system down first, and then engage with the situation? And then notice the difference, because you're coming from this calm, quieter space than we were coming from a more frantic, trying to figure something out space. Does that help? Yeah.
Mm. The moment I put my hand on the heart, I experienced a warmth that it's like I've been missing this. Why was I not? It was just without even doing anything, just putting that, and then of course, like Rabula, I started to feel lightness.
Yeah. So we often have. Well, the thing is, there's always this war between the brain and the heart. I mean, I think that's the nature of being human. Like I want to do this, but I don't know if I should. And then it's always this what do they call it? The tag war thing. What we do with HeartMath is we are trying to tune into the intelligence of the heart. It's that quiet, soft voice that feels something different, that acknowledges the way that the brain is thinking, but it can give us a different way to look into things. So that even that lightness, or first of all, that warmth that you feel is that connection of what's really important right now. And sometimes it takes, when people start to focus the first time around, they haven't spent much time paying attention to the heart. So it can be an emotional experience, it can be a physical experience. But once we start to tune to that, it becomes part of the daily voice, that guides me. It's the intuition that really comes alive. But thank you for sharing, Sam. Yeah.
Something that, yes, Alan, thank you for the exercise. Something that I wanted to reiterate, and I've experienced it with other, similar kind of exercises, is that a simple task like breathing, we take for granted. And often we're not really focused in terms of how we are breathing. We just do it naturally. I mean, the body regulates it so we stay alive. But the moment we take it and simply say, put your hand on your heart, focus on your breathing, and you actually commit to that simple instruction, it does bring this drastic improvement in terms of mind clarity. For me, in that exercise we did, I was already feeling a bit of a strain on my eye, because it's a long day and now we're doing an online show. But that little bit of breathing exercise actually released some of that strain on my eye, and the eyesight actually became more less burdened, if I could put it that way. And I just wanted to share with you that feeling of mine that we tend to overlook these simple things like breathing properly, to interconnect our breathing with the rest of our body, and that does have a positive impact. But often, as we get stuck in the run of life, we forget about those little tips and tricks and the techniques you're sharing, the mindfulness type of linkages between the HeartMath program and the benefits of life. It definitely can be seen from my side. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Devesh. You know, if we consider what actually happens when we are stressed and challenged, we're not breathing deeply. We're breathing quite shallow. We're breathing into the chest. We're releasing cortisol into the body as well as adrenaline. You know, so these are hormones designed to give us fuel to either run away or fight, right? So, and our breathing is matched to that, as well as the heart rate might go up a little bit more than usual as well. Whereas when we just do something simple as this heart-focused breathing, now this is just the foundational technique, and I just got to say to you as well that oftentimes when I'm training my coaches, you know, people overlook these simple 2 steps because they go, "Oh, it's so easy," you know. I spent 3 years with this technique, just doing this technique every single day when I got back from the United States in 2012. So from 2012 to 2015, 3 years, every single day doing this technique for 20 minutes a day. And what it's done is it's helped me find that sense of clarity and almost kind of neutral, that position of being in the space between the stress and how I want to respond. So that calmness that Jessica was speaking about, that chilled outness, you can think of that as the space between stimulus and response, where I'm no longer responding to the stress. So my body is now actually calming down and I'm no longer in the fight or flight. And so I'm now releasing more DHEA and more beneficial hormones, which is what you were experiencing there, Devesh. And then from this quiet, calm space now, I can now decide something differently. I don't have to choose that autonomic, or rather automatic unconscious behavior that I've always done when I'm stressed out. I can choose something different. And that's where the heart intelligence really comes in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So where are all these resources and how do people access them other than undergoing training?
Great. Well, I can tell you this much. I've started this year with a bang, Sam. So I have a new email series that has just come out. I would highly recommend, you know, anybody who's interested to jump onto heartmathsouthafrica.co.za. So heart heart and then math, MATH, South Africa in full.co.za, and then sign up for our newsletter. And what you'll get is every Friday, you'll get in your inbox weekly words of wisdom. And what I've done this year is I'm taking these old cliches that we throw around, you know, like forgive and forget or trust your gut. You know, I'm taking those and I'm reframing them in the HeartMath perspective, and then giving you a way to actually start to work with these ideas so you can see some results. So that's in your inbox every Friday. So sign up there. Oh, and you also get a free ebook. Well, now there's 2 ebooks there just for you guys. There's a bonus one. So if you sign up within this coming week, you'll get a bonus one, which is called Brain Fitness. And we speak about how the heart and the brain work together in that. So heartmathsouthafrica.co.za, sign up for our newsletter there and you can get some free stuff.
Beautiful. We have 10 minutes to go. I'm going to ask the colleagues to ask their last question and at the same time, if possible, just reflect on what they're taking away from here. and then allow Alan with maybe 2 minutes just to close up for us because he has to go and rest.
Can I just come in there?
Yeah.
Jessica?
Alan, just out of interest, you've mentioned about your training as an NLP. You've got NLP training, and you've got a whole lot of other training. And I'm just interested in knowing, how do you integrate all of these trainings when you're working with your HeartMath clients? How do you merge them? Because you, as a practitioner, it is impossible to just go in a silo and say, I'm going to be using solely focusing on HeartMath when you've got all the other trainings as well. How do you use all the learnings from the past in enriching your current practice?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just keep that one, Alan, because I want everybody to say there so that you can wrap up. Thanks, Jessica, Drapula, and Dinesh. I hope you won't forget that I've noted it down as well.
Okay.
I'm just watching time. I don't want us.
Yeah, what I have at the back of my mind is my take home from Alan's today was to say, sometimes when there's a lot of external forces impacting internal resistance, you need to take a breath and hold back. Don't respond immediately, because in so doing, you allow yourself time to reflect. That's my take on this session today. And you can apply it both in business, you can apply in mentorship, you can apply in coaching, you can apply in any environment you're fitting in. So when you read something for the first time, don't react, digest it, and it'll help you to respond appropriately. That's my take from Alan today. Thank you.
Thank you, Drapula.
Yes, from my side, Alan, thank you as well for sharing the innovative and impactful program that HeartMath offers, and the unique focus that you've shared with regards to the heart-brain connection, something that's very often overlooked, especially in the challenges of the daily lives that we often put ourselves in. But indeed, that real-time feedback tools that you also mentioned can help us also measure. You can't manage something unless you can actually measure it. And once you measure it, then you can come up with ideas with the training that you explained to come up with the program to actually help you. And I'm confident that, embracing a program such as the HeartMath techniques can definitely lead to a transformative benefit for individuals who are trying to empower themselves towards stress reduction, emotional stability, like you mentioned with your own personal example, and of course, just a general healthier, more coherent life. So thank you once again for the opportunity to learn about such a meaningful program such as HeartMath. But, I must feel that, I'm ethically bound to also highlight something you shared about your own personal experience right in the beginning. And something you also mentioned is, over and above the HeartMath and its benefits, one of the strengths that you've had in your ordeal of the breakup was having that community. And us as Kometsa, we always stand by the Lekgotla methodology, as well as the community being one, as being part of a community. That aspect of having people around you, whether it's friends or family or even colleagues, such as you would find maybe if you join a program such as HeartMath, we must never over or underestimate that value of community. Thank you, Alan.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, Alan, Jessica's question. And Jessica,
Okay.
if you want to also wrap up, I'll give you a chance to wrap up just for Alan. You don't go away.
Should I answer the question first, though? Let me answer the question first. So Jessica, thank you for that question. It's a great question. Personally, from my side, what I've done previously informs the way I now coach and mentor and train. So I use the principles of NLP, the language in the way that I speak. I don't use the techniques. I think of these as all modalities that we use, right? All the different modalities. But for me, oftentimes I get asked by somebody who's coming new to the training, and they ask me, do I need more training, or is this training enough? Do I need more training to be a coach? And I say, well, look, you can go and do more training, get more skills, no problem. What's unique about our training program is that you yourself, when you sign up, you go through this transformational journey yourself. So you're actually practicing each and every technique. And right at the end of the training, you see how it all fits together. So I take you on a journey that your client would possibly go on with you. And so as you are developing the skills, you are practicing for yourself. And in so doing, you are becoming the kind of coach you want to be, which is the coherent coach. Now, when we start to then tap into what the heart has to offer, that heart intelligence, we realize that each one of us here on this planet has a unique gift that we have to offer. And that unique gift is normally tied in with the challenges that we've been through ourselves, or the areas of interest that we have ourselves, right? The places that we're really interested in. And basically, we only need to be one step ahead of anybody else that we help. So for me, then, what I want to do is I want to become as coherent as I possibly can and heart-focused. So I'm practicing that technique, like heart-focused breathing, like I explained. Then I want to show up, and I want to just be open to whatever's in front of me. And I want to be able to tap into that intuitive intelligence, right? And I think that's enough already for us to just connect with each other on a heart-to-heart level. So while other skills are wonderful, it's not required. I think it's just an open heart and the willingness to really listen to somebody else and understand and empathize where they are in the world and help them. I'm a big fan of I don't know if anybody knows Ram Dass, Ramdass. He passed away a couple of years back, and he was a profound author and spiritual kind of leader. And he summed up what we all do, and he said, we are simply just walking each other home. And I just love that idea. You know, each one of us is just walking each other home, wherever home is. So if I can do that with the compassionate heart and understand my fellow man and woman, that's all I want to do. A long answer to a short question. Hopefully that answers the question for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alan. Wow, sure. We can listen to you forever. And I know it is not the last time you found yourself friends in us. And definitely thank you very much for the offer of the newsletter. I'm definitely, at the end of this program, I'm going to jump in and subscribe. And I'm sure our members out there and listeners will benefit from that. And yeah, the day you happen to be in the country, maybe we'll do a breakfast and have a face-to-face engagement with you. I'm glad you haven't forgotten about your home country, based in Thailand, but still taking care of HeartMath South Africa. Beauty of technology. And for me, it's been a joy to have met you. I think you were brought into touch with me through the global office. Now I have much closer connection. And I must say, those who might have not been aware of HeartMath, there's so much tools and there's so much work HeartMath is doing in the community. And I think down here in KZN, the research center, what do you call it?
The Global Coherence Initiative, yeah.
And it's one of the 5 in the world, I guess.
Yeah, so basically there are these, what they call magnetometers, these sensors that we put into the earth, and they are based in different countries, and they all speak into a computer somewhere. And what it does is it measures the, well, when the sun has a solar flare and this radiation comes towards us, it disturbs the magnetic field, and then that has an impact on us humans. So that's what it's measuring. And then as it's measuring that, the long story short that we need to focus on here, because I don't want to get into too much of the science. This would be too much. The basic is this: no matter what is happening in our lives, whether it's something that feels like it's really personal, or you just pull into a gas station and you get your car filled up and you were happy, but as you leave, you go, why am I feeling so grumpy? It might not even be your stress that you're picking up. But it's not about being attached to whether it is your stress or whether it's not your stress. It's about, can I bring my attention back to me here? And then as I come back to that place of the heart and the space between things, how do I want to respond from here and now? So it's about stopping that unconscious automatic behavior. That's what it is for me. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alan, for giving us your time so late. It's really not taken so lightly. We really value that. And we hope when you leave here, you're going to switch off and sleep peacefully, knowing very well that you have empowered us. And I will be in touch with you and will definitely invite you again. Thank you so much and all the best.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Devesh. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Rapol. And thank you to everybody else who's watching.
Thank you so much. You take care.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Wow. Great, colleagues. It's been wonderful. Jessica, I kept on thinking as you was talking about the heart coherence and the heart focus, and I'm just now saying from heart focus to voice. I don't know what you call it, voice awareness or whatever you call it. But something there is intentional about using our voice. But before we jump into the topic of voice coaching, just go back and recap a little bit for us your kind of work you do, and then of course let's go into the topic of voice coaching and why voice coaching in particular, not just coaching, and then my colleagues are here, they can also just engage with you on the topic. I've been looking forward to learn more about it since you and I have been speaking. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sam, and thanks to Alan. That was such a fantastic session there. As he was talking, I was thinking the link there for me was that with HeartMath, he focused on breathing, and as a voice coach, that's one of the things that we focus on. So just going back to who I am, what I do, and where it all started. I am a speech and language therapist, and I've been a speech and language therapist for many years. And as I was practicing as a speech and language therapist, helping professional voice users with their voice and mastering their voice, I was getting a lot more people coming to me, asking me to help them improve their voice. People who did not have any what we call disordered voice, which was what I did as a speech therapist in the medical model. And also another thing that I had was that I wasn't very confident with my voice, even though I was working as a speech and language therapist. One of the things that happened, which was for me a turning point, was one day I was asked, as a speech therapist, I was doing a lot of training, but I was so uncomfortable with that because I was uncomfortable with my voice and how I sounded. I was asked to go out and do a presentation. And I was so uncomfortable doing that. I had this intense fear of public speaking that I got up and I just froze. Nothing came out. I was shaking like a leaf. I was so embarrassed because people had so much expectation, but I just could not deliver. I held on to the leptin so much that my palms were marked because I was so afraid. I was shaking like a leaf. And that for me was also a turning point into delving a lot deeper into what is it that makes somebody to stand up and just freeze and not produce anything. And that opened another door into delving a lot deeper into understanding our voice, understanding the mechanics of voice, understanding what is it that we do with the voice. How come some people can just stand up and talk with no problems? How come other people are held back by how they perceive themselves and perceive their voices? I am very soft-spoken, and this is how I'm going to continue for the rest of my life. When some people out there can just be out there and be bold and speak and let their voice serve them in a way that helps them progress in their career, progress in their businesses. So I delve deeper into that and understanding the mechanics of voice. What makes a person a good speaker? What makes a person an average speaker? And what makes a person a really diabolical speaker? So that was some of the things that drove me into getting a lot deeper into voice coaching. And at the moment, I work with entrepreneurs. I help them master their voices. Most of the people that come to me are very competent and comfortable in the subject matter. And what they need is for me to help them elevate or recalibrate their voices so that when they're connecting with their audience, whether it's an audience of one or whether it's an audience of 1,000, they do it in a way that helps them engage, inform, inspire, transform whoever that they're connecting with or whoever the audience is. So that for me, voice coaching is a lot bigger than just using our voice as an instrument. Because as humans, our voices are influenced by how we sound is influenced by so many factors. It's number one is influenced by our family. If you're brought up in a family of parents who are very soft-spoken, it's very high likelihood that you will be soft-spoken because as kids, we absorb and take on what our families do. On the other hand, our voices are influenced by our educational level. It's influenced by our geographical area. It's influenced by our status in our society. So people change their voices, and sometimes people get married to how they sound because how we sound is also linked to our personality. And sometimes we get married to how we sound that people don't really like to change, because I get some clients come to me and say, Jessica, yes, I would like to sound a lot better. But no, if I try 1, 2, 3, I'm going to sound fake. I'm going to sound phony. And what I always say is, yes, when you're transforming anything that we do, anything that you try to change, it's at the beginning, you're going to sound different because that sound is unfamiliar. And the more you practice, you get familiar with the new sound. And the more you get familiar with this new sounds, and then you're going to use that sound to help progress or elevate your career. And so for me, voice coaching is bigger than just sounding a lot clearer. It's more integral to how we communicate as leaders, is more as how we communicate as human beings in our personal relationships, and also how we move our businesses forward, because how we communicate is the distance between us and success, because our voice is open. It opens the doorway to what we need in the future, our businesses, who we connect with and how we connect, what we say or what we do not say. So there's a whole lot there that's packaged in voice coaching and voice training.
Like you're saying that one can focus too much on just what the two words, voice coaching, but there's more behind it, and there are many reasons why people will want to be voice coached. It looks like it's what your voice can do for you, either knowingly or unknowingly. Now, what makes people to realize that they need the voice coach?
Currently, most of the people that come to me are people who are leaders in their, whether in their workplaces, they are leaders or they are business owners. And what they know is that they've got a good service, they've got a product, but what they would like to improve is how they go out there and market their product. How do they stand up in front of an audience and project in such a way that they connect with the audience and are engaging, are inspiring, or they come across as that person of authority in that field. They come across as believable in the area that they're talking about. So people come to me for those kind of, and sometimes I get professional voice users who come to me. Why? Because they've got a project and they're going to be talking for 3 days. And what they would like to know and do is how do they use their voice in such a way that they are able to sustain, project, and are able to continue for the 3 days without using their voice. Because our voice is one of those things that we're born with, like same as walking. It's very easy to misuse, overuse your voice without even realizing that you're doing that. So professional voice users come to me to say, right, how do I maintain my voice so I do not overuse and I can speak for 3, 4, 5 days without using my voice? And on the other hand, I get those people that say, right, I know I'm very competent in what I do, but I know that I can elevate, I can improve my speaking skills. So how do I go about doing that? How do I connect with my audience? I've got presentations at work. How do I make sure that I do that in a way that connects with my audience better and I don't lose their attention midway through their presentation?
Wow.
And so those are the 2 key people that come to me. And what I usually tend to do is, what we do is, especially with with our voices, there's a lot of awareness that we do, and there's a lot of mindset work that we do as well, because especially when it comes to those people that think, you know what, I know I can do this, but I'm not really 100%. I'm not really confident. I've got this fear as well. And, I just don't really I'm not very comfortable with how I sound. I actually hate how I sound. So there's a lot of mindset work that we do in terms of getting those people to know about what are some of the trigger points, what are some of the things that got them to actually be thinking, I hate my voice, I don't like how I sound, or my voice is such, I'm coming across as harsh, or I come across as aggressive, because those things need a certain level of awareness and acceptance before.
And then tell me, how big is the market of voice coaching? Maybe let's start with the part of the world where you are.
The market is huge, but let me tell you the tricky bit about some of the people that I coach. I guess maybe with voice coaching, it's not like weight loss coaching. Some people who come to voice coaching don't want other people to know that they've been voice coached. And as a result, it doesn't kind of look like a huge market, but that we do have a huge number of people. But like I say, when you voice coaching a leader who is managing a huge company, some of those people don't want to come across and say, I'm going through a voice coach.
But like all coaching, I mean, it tend to be quite confidential because it's really a private matter, and I can imagine with voice coaching it's even more so than all the others. And Rabula, do you any reflection there?
So, Sam, do you know when Jessica started? What came to my mind very often, do you know, if you take that cap of the high school kid, where you go and do choir practice, you start thinking around those lines of voice. By that time, he's not a professional person who's talking about the voice issues. How your tenor should sound, your bass should sound, your soprano should sound, your alto should sound.
More to do with music.
Exactly. So, but if you go back and say, here I am now, I'm a professional speaker, or I'm just ordinary speaker, you start swallowing your last words is because you haven't gone to the professional advice. So people hear your first word, but they don't hear your last words. So you tend to lose them in a process. So it triggered that at the back of my mind to say, you know, sometimes some of those things we take them for granted.
Yes.
But they really add a lot of value.
That sounds like I can imagine that is actually the overall syllabus within your speech therapy, or what do you call it, Jessica? And then within that, you chose to focus on the voice. Am I right? I might be wrong.
Absolutely, because with voice, there's a whole lot of intricacies with voice training, because what Rapula mentioned there is so key, because when it comes to voice and speaking, there's some basic foundations, or what I would call the things that make us speak the way we speak. And there's 5 key foundations of voice, which is our pitch, our pace, melody, tone, and volume. And how we integrate all of those together will make us sound, whether you come across as a confident speaker, or you come across as influential, or you come across as somebody who's soft-spoken and you're losing the attention of your audience. And another thing that also I usually add is our body language and our facial expression, especially now in this year of talking or virtually. It's still very important to come across with strong body language and your facial gestures, because that also helps in terms of how you connect with your audience. I'll go step by step, going back to the pitch, pace, melody, tone, and volume. Pitch, basically what that talks about is how high and how low your voice comes across. Men, for example, do have generally low pitch sounding voice. That is the default. And women do have a high sounding voice. That's just the default of how the women pitch in women is. However, having said that, as a man and also as a woman, there's nothing stopping you to tap into those two. Like for example, when we're using low pitch sounding voice, sometimes when we expressing something that is very serious, something very powerful, lower sounding pitch gives that extra impact. Whereas sometimes when you showcasing excitement, high pitch tends to sound a lot better when for excitement. So as a speaker, knowing when and how to tap into those helps elevate your speaking skills. And sometimes also, if you're, like for example, as a woman, if I'm forever out speaking out like that as a high-pitched voice, that sometimes can be misinterpreted as somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about, or you're not very confident in what you're talking about. And also as a man, if you're forever at very low sounding voice, that sometimes sound like you're disengaged. And so as speakers, it is important to know how and when to tap into your high pitch and low pitch, because that helps in terms of when you're trying to emphasize or when you're wanting to make a point land. And the next thing is pace. Pace is how fast or how slow we speak. If I came here and started talking very, very fast and going on and on and on, that in a way can make me lose your attention and focus. And also, if I was coming and speaking very so slow and really going on like that, that's also another quick way to lose your attention. Because the way a human brain works is that when they think they're going to anticipate what you're going to say next, then people switch off. So if you're speaking way too slow, that also makes people switch off. But also balancing the two, because sometimes when we've got another strong point to showcase, speaking a little bit slower is key, because you want your audience to listen. And so that's pace. That's how fast and how slow you speak. Melody is the music in your voice. I'm not too sure whether you have listened to a song where you didn't even have an idea about the lyrics. It's in a foreign language, but you listen to the beat and you loving the sound of the music, and that is because of the melody in that song. So
that's why you'll hear people say, "Oh, he has such a beautiful voice," meaning that actually is melodious.
Absolutely. If people say you've got such a beautiful voice, that is because the melody in the voice is what catches their attention. And that's what keeping them listening to you, because of just the melody of the voice. And when there's no melody in the voice, you'll be able to tell the story, you'll be able to finish the conversation, but the tricky with that is that if the voice sounds monotonous, then people lose attention, and also you don't sound like you are passionate in what you say and what you're talking about. And on the other hand as well, if you're, let's say, for example, the sounding is monotonous and you're speaking fast and the pitch is low, that's a sound of aggression and anger. And so it's very important as a speaker to know and understand, when do I tap into all of those? How do I make my voice, my sound come across as if I'm that person of authority, I'm interested in what people are saying? And especially as a leader, when you're giving feedback and you're talking to people that you're working with, it's really key to understand how what you say and how that is landing on the people that you're talking with. And as I've mentioned, pitch, pace, melody, tone. Tone is the sound of emotion. That's where our emotion lies. Understanding how to vary our tone is what makes people, those fantastic storytellers, have got that sense of emotion. They're able to play around with their tone such that they tap into that emotion that they want people to feel. Because as speakers, sometimes it's very key to know, after listening to me, what is it that I want my audience to feel, do, and have? So when you play around with your tone, you'll be able to tap into those emotions that you want you're able to evoke a lot more emotion in your listeners. And sorry, carry on.
We always say, I picked it up from the tone of your voice that you are agitated, something like that. We often hear people, that tone of the voice carries so much message in it.
Yes, as much as I can agree with that, Sam, one of the aspects I wanted to touch base with regards to Jessica. But thank you, Jessica, for all the information and dynamics in terms of voice control, voice usage that listeners can actually start thinking about. One of the aspects in terms of the digital online streaming mastery program, which Komatsa has been offering, is that of being able to handle a situation where, like in South Africa, you've got multiple cultures, you've got diversity of people, different languages, and even more so when we do broadcasting like we're doing tonight. We have potential viewers, listeners out there who have a different understanding of what voice, signifies. For example, like you're saying, someone might be excited and be using a high-pitched voice to express their emotion. But on the other end, you might find someone who's from a culture which for somebody to be raising their voice, it signifies disrespect. It signifies a different kind of aspect. So I just wanted you to talk about the aspect of how voice integrates into multicultural kinds of environments. Thank you.
Oh, that's such a fantastic question. Because, like you say, when you're virtual, it's a global stage, and you get to communicate with people from across different cultures. And culture is so key because our voices are influenced by our backgrounds. And so as a speaker, it's very important to understand who your audience is. And because how you work around with your pace, pitch, pace, melody, tone, and volume is going to have an impact on how you land and how you connect with the audience. Because like you're saying, in some cases, for example, I'm going to also add like facial expression and eye contact, because as a communicators, that's also very key. Eye contact in some cultures is regarded as rude. And in the Western world, when you're speaking to somebody, you have to look at them in the eye. Whereas in some cultures, speaking, especially when you're young, you can look at somebody who is senior to you in the eye. And same goes for communication. Some cultures, when you're raising your voice, that is rude and aggressive. Whereas in other cultures, when you're soft-spoken, that comes across as if you don't really know and you're not passionate. So it is really key to understand who you're serving. Because how you communicate, you need to make sure that how you communicate is in line with the people that you serve, because that is really key. It's going to affect how you connect with your audience.
I guess and this is quite fascinating because it's all about being awake or conscious or being intentional about things. It looks like, thank you, you gave us I want you to finish with the volume, because that finishes the entire explanation, which is so beautiful. I guess everything at the end of the day, like we have gone through the 40 units. I used to say to Divesh that, my goodness, are we ever going to be able to apply all these do's and don'ts at once? And then I realized that it's not about applying them all at once, it's about using them at the time when you need them. And be aware that now that was that particular knowledge of it. So these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 aspects of your voice. As you speak about them, I realized that just out of experience, actually we do a lot of what you are saying, but the level of consciousness and awareness between us, it depends on how much we have been trained. And I guess that's what your coaching comes in, am I right? To say that it's all about creating awareness. Many times 50% of what you're trying to make them aware, they've already been practicing it, but they were not just aware, but they picked it up from watching and observing other people. It's like you have your favorite people on radio or on TV. You like them, but you don't know why you like them until you actually get exposed to this. You're like, oh, actually, I like the pitch or the whatever.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the majority of the time, people, it's like we say with voice coaching, it's the awareness that for a lot of people is the turning point, because we born with our voices, and a lot of the time we think, yes, I've got this voice and this is it for me, and there's nothing I can do. But people don't quite realize that actually your voice, it's, we hear a lot of visual presence, we hear a lot of all that, but people don't talk about vocal presence, because the same way that you can change how you look and how you come across so that you can create fantastic first impressions, you can do the same for how you sound, because how you sound can create those first impressions for people. And there's a whole lot to do with awareness, because people, like you're saying, when you hear somebody that you like and how they sound, and you think, wow, I like how that person is coming across, that person is sounding very confident. And what we don't realize is that that person has mastered the sound of confidence. They know how confidence sounds like, and that is exactly what they're doing with their voices. So being aware of that is really key, because a lot of the time, I get some of my clients who come in and they, I'm going to go back to say they're soft spoken, or they've got a very deep voice, and they think, my goodness, I'm struggling at work. People say I'm aloof, or people say I come across as aggressive. And it's just about how they sound. And once they learn and they've got that awareness and they know what to do with their voice, then that makes, that improves their ability to communicate better and connect better. And so awareness is really, really key. And going back to what Deepesh was saying about different cultures, there's also an element of accent, because I get some people who come and say, I've got a very strong accent, and that's why these people are not hearing me at work. And what I always say is, accent has got nothing to do with that. Accent is part of who we are. How we sound is part of who we are. It's integral to who we are. And the biggest difference is how we articulate. Because when you've got a strong accent and you're not articulating to your audience such that they understand you at first go, if you're talking in such a way that people have to start thinking, what did they just say? Then that's when you lose connection. But even with an accent, if you're articulating your words well, then you'll be able to connect better. So that's, there's a whole lot of things that I talk about with my clients. And like you're saying, awareness is really key.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine starting to build that competency in the leadership and see the transformation that people go through. Because the message that you bring across sometimes can be watered down by just not being vocally present. We call it vocal presence. It's actually the awareness I'm talking about, that actually you can enrich your message by actually being conscious about the quality of your voice. But it will appear like this is a nice to have competency. Currently.
Oh, I think it's not a nice to have. I think it's really key to have, because if.
But I mean, in terms of the bigger majority of the people out there, they might think that this is not important. As a CEO, I'm not going to bother about my voice because I can talk, they can hear me. I don't know. I'm just imagining what you come across trying to sell voice coaching as a product.
Yes, I mean, some people do think, yes, my voice is how it is, and I've got to the level where I am, and I'm doing great. Fair enough. But for the majority of people, their voice is their asset. And for those people that are using their voice and it's not serving them, and they're not getting the promotions, and they're not moving forward in their careers, then it is really key to. There's something can be done for that. What I want people to know is that you're born with your voice, yes, but it's not a fixed thing that cannot be changed. So if that voice is not serving you, it's not serving the goals that you have in life, then there's something can be done. In as much as if you're born with the body that you have, and something can be done to make sure that your body is fit and you can do whatever goals that you have in life. Same goes for your voice. You're born with your voice, but yes, we can. There's so much that we can do to help elevate your voice, to help recalibrate your voice so that it serves you and your audience in a way that you want or you desire.
If you were to rewind and go back to the beginning, where you're choosing the line of study, will you still choose speech therapy, speech and language therapy?
Absolutely 100%. There is nothing as liberating as fulfilling to help somebody who has struggled in the ability to communicate, and you help them and they're able to go there and communicate, and you can see them open up and shine. For me, that is more than anything in the world, because a lot of the time we don't quite appreciate our ability to communicate until that goes. When last week I'm recovering from a really bad flu, and I didn't have my voice for a while. And as somebody who used my voice all the time, and it's, as a voice coach, when you don't have a voice, it's the time when you think, oh my goodness, how do people manage? And even with a whisper, when I was whispering out, I didn't feel that I was making an impact or was giving the influence that I wanted. So yes, I would do it all over again.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's good to hear.
I was just going to go back to finishing off. I've mentioned I didn't get back to volume.
Volume, yes.
Unless if somebody else here has got a question.
From my side, I just wanted to, help me out. How do you manage the issue of a person speaking in a different language? The other one is translating what the person is speaking. Because don't forget, the voice goes with emotions and goes with the tone. And the translator is such as relaxed mode, is not even in that same tone. How do you sort of help the two to have the same tone, the same voice, the same energy together? How do you, in that scenario? So, on this space, I'm thinking of in South Africa, the Kaizer Chief coach. So when he is winning, he'll speak English. When he's losing, he'll speak, I'm not sure the Spanish or Turkish, I'm not sure in the space. So you can see when he speaks, there's emotions on it. But the translator is static. How do you help the two together to have the same emotional approach?
That's such a good question, because like you're saying, our tone, our pitch, everything reflects the emotion and our facial expression. Our body language has so much to do with how we feel and the emotion that we wanting to experience and express. And when it comes to translating, it all goes about that the two people understanding where the other is at. And sometimes it's very easy to be lost in translation. It's very key to understand what is it that's making the like, for example, the Kaizer Chief, the coach, he probably resorts to his first language because he knows that in his first language he can actually express his emotions better. He will be able to tap into the vocabulary that he will struggle to express in English. And the interpreter wanting to match that, because then they need to be able to be at the same level with the coach in terms of what are some of the emotions that the coach is trying to put across, and what is the message that the coach is trying to put across. And they need to just match their body language. They need to just be able to match their pitch, pace, tone, melody, and volume to reflect that. It's a very challenging one. It's a very difficult one, this one, because it's two people speaking at the same time, trying to express their emotion. One person can feel the emotion, whereas the other person is just translating the emotion as not in the emotion itself, is not feeling it.
Actually, what is very interesting, talking about the emotions, this is a very good example that Rapula you brought through. The Kaizer Chiefs coach is slowly starting to improve in understanding and hearing English. Now, there was a question asked, and the translator wanted to translate, and he started answering. He said, no, I heard him. and the emotions were not lost there because he could relate. So I guess it's a very, very important thing to be aware that translation is a very, very risky thing to do if the two are not aligned, because a lot get lost. And then I think it's all signs of communication. But it's the same thing, failing to read the body language. It's the same thing. I mean, if you don't read the body language, you then get different emotions evoked because you didn't get the message. So the whole signs of communication where we're relating to each other. But I mean, I think in coaching is the same. As much as we don't need a translator, but there's a lot happening in that session when you are sitting with somebody that you miss to get. But I mean, I'm just expanding the topic, but let's not take you away from the subject. But thanks, Rapula, for bringing that, because.
But Sam, it also goes to the churches. Have you ever seen in a church scenario where the pastor is preaching with emotions, and the translator trying to go on the same emotional, but you might find out somewhere else something get missing in the process.
Yeah.
So at least I'm asking the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, we laugh about it, but it is a serious issue.
It's a valid point, because Rapula, when I'm expressing something, when I'm putting a point across, I am feeling that emotion from the core. And it's going to be difficult for somebody else who it doesn't feel that emotion to actually emulate that and put it across the same way that I am feeling it. Because emotion is just so core and so central to us. And it's very difficult to translate an emotion. It's very easy to translate words, but translating an emotion is very difficult. And so that's why sometimes when people are translating, things do get lost in translation, because the emotion doesn't quite translate that easily. And also with that, when somebody speaks in one language and translating another language, there's a whole lot of processes going on, because one, they think in one language, and then they go through the whole translation, they try to find that English word, and with English it's got so many words to mean one thing, and so they're trying to find the right word to express whatever emotion that they're going through, and put it, like, try to follow the English grammar language so that that comes across well. So there's multiple things going on there at once and quickly. And so sometimes it's very difficult to interpret that and translate.
So language is something that also is fundamental in the whole topic, right?
Absolutely. Language is fundamental, because language as a whole has got its own processes. There's, language, there's grammar, that understanding the grammatical rules, understanding the morphology, phonology of the words. There's so many other things to understand in language, and understanding the vocabulary as well. For English has got so many words that in my language, which is Sepedi, we sometimes one word just serves and is perfect, whereas in English you've got so many things to describe one thing, but it's the context that matters.
Yeah. You want to finish with the volume, and then we can move on to the other aspects.
Volume, it's exactly what it is. It's how high and how loud and how soft we speak. And one thing that I always say to people, which I've actually noticed, especially now in the virtual world, is that people tend to they lose their breath in their projection is that they lose the ability to project and sustain longer utterances. Why? Because they don't coordinate their breathing well, such that they're not energizing their sentences. So you hear people talking, and when they speak and they at the end of the sentence they lose the words like that, they go softer. Or like this, especially young people these days, which I hear a lot on virtual stage, is people have what we call a glottal fry or a squeaky hinge, where at the end of the sentences they're speaking and they go like that because they're running out of breath. I hear it a lot with young people, and they're like this. It seems to be like a trend, and they're losing their breath, and so they're not quite energizing their sentences. And when you do that, sometimes it sometimes makes you don't you're not coming across as well as you would, especially with that squeaky hinge sounding voice. It's not like that appealing as somebody who's a professional coming across, and having that squeaky hinge doesn't quite give that believability factor that as a professional you need to have. And also having that low sounding voice, or you speaking too soft as a leader, that also doesn't kind of really reflect well on your level of authority and believability. So how we manage our volume is also really critical in terms of how we are perceived, because people are easy. We live in a world where people will make value judgments based on how you sound, on how you look, rightly or wrongly. But that's what people do in these days. And it's just making sure that when we communicate, it reflects well on basically our brand and our professional status.
I'm very glad you're touching on that. That was going to be one of the next point I was going to raise, that this is integral to personal brand and image. And when somebody is an all-rounder and is making huge impact in relationships with people on public forums, it's very difficult to tell which aspects of their personal branding, personal development is benefiting, is everything together. So we may ignore voice training or voice coaching, but we may not realize the contribution it makes to our success and failure, until somehow we get help by a professional to say, man, you're not getting what you are getting because in terms of your personal development, here is a gap. And that's where feedback comes in. And that's why I guess I was even assuming that it's not a big market, because it's not voice coaching for the sake of voice coaching. It's integral to a whole person. And it's only once a person become a leader or visible in the society that we start to pick up the gaps, because everybody is scrutinizing. But otherwise, if you are just us, nobody's going to say anything about those gaps, because it doesn't matter. You're causing no harm anyway. That eventually.
Well, Sam,
until you become a premier, we don't care what voice, tone, and volume you have.
I have a different experience, Sam. When I was, 2021, I was a student at UCT, and I got a part-time job with a then very cutting-edge endeavor of retail going into the banking space and telebanking as that way. So Pick n Pay had a financial services division, and I got a part-time job as a tele consultant. And I remember there was a organization called the Voice Clinic, and we had about a month training in terms of having proper voice, professional voice, having tools within your voice to be able to deal with a customer who's irate, customer who's confused, happy customer. So different kinds of mechanisms and tools to be able to use your voice to control that situation, especially over the telephone. So I do see the value that it can have on Joe Soap, if I can put it that way, not necessarily just for the high-flying politicians. Another market, I think, as well, I'm sure Jessica has experienced it to some extent, where the voice coaching is really, really sought after, is in the space of artificial intelligence, where you're training computers to be able to not only understand the human voice, but also to be able to convey certain messages back to the human in an appropriate human-like voice as well. So again, all the aspects that Jessica was raising, I've seen it in, I did a artificial intelligence master's, and one of my modules was on NLP. But NLP, very different from what you possibly deal with, Jessica. It was more in terms of being able to digitalize the various aspects of voice and then be able to code it into the computer so that when you speak as a human, the computer will be able to digitalize that and understand the words you're using, the tone, and etc. But one of the big challenges we always find, and it's still there, is that African languages and African voice and African words, and I'm sure other cultures as well, but specifically for Africa, the digitalized use of voice in the AI space, in the natural language processing space, is still leading a lot of development because of those areas that you've highlighted, which a person needs to develop when you get coached. It's the same challenges that the computers have. Mostly, I would think, is because a lot of the systems that we are using is born out of the Western areas. So it's very different, as you also outlined, Sepedi. One word can mean a full, mouthful, whereas in English you need 10 words and an apostrophe here and there to actually then say the same kind of meaning. I just wanted to share that, Sam.
Indeed.
And I'm really glad that you shared that, because one of the companies that I worked with in South Africa, I worked a lot with Adapt IT, and I worked a lot with FNB in that space of frontline staff who are dealing with customers, how they can maximize their voices and be able to diffuse difficult, how they communicate with difficult clients, and how do they control their voices so that they can diffuse that anger or irate or whatever clients at that stage. So I'm glad that you've raised that, because that's such a that's so key, especially in voice coaching.
Wow, we can talk again nonstop, but time is not there. This is so important. I know that the repeat of this conversation is going to be very beneficial for those people that couldn't be awake until so late in the evening. So that's why we allowed the repeat. So if we can just sum it up, I mean, Jessica, in terms of what we have covered. I'm now talking to you as somebody who is caring for this profession that you are in, of voice coaching. If you were to sum up what we have touched on, we can't cover everything, but what we have touched on this evening as the first time of exploring this, because I know you and I will discuss, and we're going to explore this as not as just a branch of coaching that I think is needed. What will be the top 5 things that you will use to sum the conversation of this evening?
For me, what some of the things is that our voices, how we communicate is so key and central in terms of our career, our businesses. And the one thing that we need to know is that as speakers, as leaders, it's about understanding the foundations of voice. which is what is going to, even understanding the smallest things, which is what makes the biggest impact. Because in voice training and voice coaching, it's not about making huge changes, but it's about making those small tweakments, I'll call them, in how you speak, which is going to have a huge impact in how you come across as a human being, or as a speaker to your audiences. And also that if anybody feels that their voice, they're not happy with how they come across, it can be changed. It's not set in stone. Everything can be changed and everything can be altered. And it's communication is very important. Our voice is one of the most important tool that we have in terms of how we communicate, and it's how we use that which is going to make us that person of influence and that person of impact.
Wonderful. Wow. Rabula, your closing remarks?
They said an African child, when he or she's upset, will sing. When he or she's happy, will sing. So in that space of that melody, that's why it confuses the enemy, whether this person upset or this person is happy in terms of what he's doing. So hence you find them in the during days of the mining era, when they were digging the mines, they were singing. So that melody used to confuse a person who's listening, whether is this people upset or are these people happy. So the dynamics of that melody also helps as a person, what type of the state are you going to convey the message on? So that has helped me a lot in terms of saying, in futuristic view, when you speak to the audience, guard against the type of melody you're going to pitch on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abula. You are becoming so poetic this day. Closing remarks. Thank you so much. I love it. Divesh?
Yes, thank you very much, Jessica, for an enlightening exploration into the power of voice and the transformative potential of voice coaching. And it's definitely a powerful instrument for expressing our identity, emotions, as well as our intentions, not just as a tool for communication. Definitely, again, the insights and techniques that you shared today do highlight how voice coaching can unlock new levels of confidence, clarity, as well as impact that you'd like to achieve. And until next time, I hope our listeners out there keep speaking with power and with purpose. Thank you.
Beautiful. I have certainly learned so much from our conversations this evening, starting with HeartMath and then ending up with Voices4Success. Thank you so much for being generous with these insights. These are the things that you spend years cultivating, learning, and now you're sharing with us as a coach. And this was like a masterclass. Thank you so much. I have keywords that I have written here in terms of what I had wanted us to achieve this evening with you and also with Alan, and that is we want to develop interest into these professions because they are there, they exist, and they are accessible. And if we don't share about them, then the interest level won't even exist. We want to create awareness. I think as much as we have all done voice clinic and Toastmasters and everything, that's not enough. So you need a voice coach. And today I'm aware if I need a voice coach, because I've got a project where I'm going to speak, there's a lot of people that are going to be critical. I know that there's Coach Jessica goes next to me. So that awareness definitely been created. And of course, just sharing the information. I mean, you must have appreciated, Jessica, the kind of insights we've shared with you from our perspective in terms of culture, in terms of the language, in terms of, and then of course you taught us that things like our accent and all those things, that's who we are. We shouldn't be wanting to change them. It's articulation that we must focus on. So those are some of the things I take in this information. And then of course, definitely promotion. All of us are in different professions. That's why we tell people what we do, because we want people to know what we do, you know, and that, I hope we've managed to do that as well for you being here. And I hope this audio will continue doing that. And then, of course, our own continuous professional development. If you ask me at the beginning of these 2 hours what I was going to learn, I wouldn't be able to tell what I've learned now. So with that, I think the purpose of this show, first Tuesday of every month, where we say it's about profiling our club membership, our members, and then inviting people to educate our members. I hope we are achieving that. Thank you so much, viewers, listeners. This was COMESA Television Network, part of our global channels. And we were talking to earlier on Alan Strydom, who is the director at the HeartMath South Africa. He's also a master coach and a trainer. And of course, the second hour with Jessica Mathabatha, a sister away from home in the UK. We are very well represented there among the voice coaches. It's been a great thing for me to have met you, and I hope this is not the last time. And then, of course, as always, my co-anchors, co-host, Divesh Motilal, Rabula Murivani, and then myself, Sam Zima. We're saying goodbye. This is the mind, the journey, the destiny. We apply our mind to the journey that takes us to our destiny. And our shows are based on the principle we call the idea. This is a principle that makes sure that we continuously professionally develop ourselves. We inform and entertain, develop and educate, empower and support, associate and network. That's the idea. I hope we lived up to those principles this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. You take care until we meet again next Tuesday. Goodbye. And colleagues, stay in the studio as I disconnect from our viewers.